Dr. Samuel Hayes had always prided himself on being the kind of medical researcher who approached alien cultures with scientific objectivity, which made it particularly embarrassing that his first week on Velendra had been spent violating approximately 17 different quarantine protocols, while his immune system staged what could only be described as a comprehensive revolt against Zephyrian atmospheric conditions. The Zephyrian medical facility, where he found himself confined, possessed all the sterile efficiency of human hospitals combined with architectural aesthetics that made him feel like he was recovering inside a crystalline flower that someone had optimized for patient care. Everything curved and flowed with organic grace, while bioluminescent panels provided lighting that shifted through spectrums designed to promote healing, though the effect was somewhat diminished by Samuel's conviction that he was probably going to die on an alien world while surrounded by beings who considered his illness an unfortunate diplomatic inconvenience. The Zephyrians themselves were living proof that evolution could produce beings so elegantly beautiful that human languages lacked adequate descriptive vocabulary. Their luminescent skin patterns shifted through colors that seemed to respond to emotion and thought, while their elongated limbs moved with the kind of graceful precision that made ordinary walking look like choreographed dance. Even their medical staff looked like they'd stepped off the covers of intergalactic fashion magazines, their ethereal features perfectly symmetrical, and their voices carrying musical undertones that made even clinical diagnoses sound like poetry. "Dr. Hayes," announced Dr. Velthari, whose skin currently displayed swirling patterns of blue and silver that probably indicated professional concern, but looked like living artwork. "Your neurological condition appears to be stabilizing, though we recommend continued observation until your evacuation transport arrives." Samuel tried to nod appreciation while wondering if his fevered brain was accurately processing conversations or simply creating elaborate hallucinations involving impossibly beautiful aliens discussing his medical care in voices that belonged in concert halls rather than hospitals. His condition had deteriorated from routine cultural adaptation syndrome to something that made his nervous system feel like it was being rewired by enthusiastic but incompetent electricians. The days blurred together in a haze of medications that tasted like liquid starlight and monitoring equipment that hummed with the kind of sophisticated technology that made human medical devices seem primitive by comparison. Most of the medical staff treated him with professional courtesy that maintained careful distance, their interactions suggesting that, while they were committed to keeping him alive for diplomatic reasons, they found his alien physiology both medically challenging and aesthetically distressing. It was during his third week of confinement, when his condition had worsened to the point where even the optimistic medical updates couldn't disguise the fact that he might not survive long enough for human medical evacuation, that he first encountered the night shift attendant, who would change his understanding of what kindness looked like when no one was watching. Kira the Losa appeared during the deep night hours when the facility operated with minimal staff and reduced lighting, her presence so quiet that Samuel initially thought she was part of his fever-induced hallucinations. Unlike every other Zephyrian he'd encountered, her appearance diverged dramatically from their species' aesthetic ideals. Her skin bore mottled scars that disrupted the flowing patterns of bioluminescence, while her limbs were shorter and more robust than the elegant proportions that defined Zephyrian beauty. She moved through his medical bay with efficient competence, checking equipment, and adjusting his treatment protocols without the elaborate courtesy that characterized daytime interactions. When she spoke, her voice carried the same musical undertones as other Zephyrians, but something in her manner suggested someone who'd learned to work in shadows where her appearance wouldn't challenge anyone's expectations about what medical professionals should look like. "The automated systems are miscalibrating your medication dosages," she said during her second visit, her tone matter-of-fact as she manually adjusted the dispensers with the confidence of someone who understood the equipment better than its programmers. Your human physiology processes our compounds differently than the standard algorithms predict. Samuel tried to thank her, but his neurological condition had progressed to the point where speech required more coordination than he could reliably manage. She seemed to understand his difficulty, continuing her work without expecting responses while providing the kind of care that went beyond mere medical protocols. Over the following weeks, as his condition fluctuated between gradual improvement and alarming deterioration, Kira became his lifeline during the dark hours when official medical attention was reduced to automated monitoring and emergency responses. She brought him water when dehydration made swallowing difficult, adjusted his position when muscle spasms made rest impossible, and sat beside his bed reading ancient Zephyrian poetry in her melodic voice when isolation threatened to overwhelm his struggling consciousness. "This poem describes the beauty found in imperfection," she said one night, her scarred fingers holding a text that glowed with soft bioluminescence. "How the most precious things are often those that have been broken and reformed, like crystals that grow stronger along fracture lines." Her kindness came without explanation or expectation of gratitude, offered during hours when her compassion would never be witnessed or rewarded by supervisors who might question why she was providing enhanced care to an alien patient whose survival wasn't guaranteed. Samuel began to understand that her relegated position in the facility's hierarchy wasn't due to incompetence, but to a society that equated physical beauty with professional worth, making her exceptional medical skills secondary to appearance standards that she could never meet. When his evacuation transport finally arrived, and Samuel's condition had stabilized enough for travel, he tried desperately to find Kira to express his gratitude, but learned that she had requested transfer to a remote research station, where her presence wouldn't be a constant reminder to patients and colleagues of Zephyrian beauty standards she couldn't achieve. Their final encounter was wordless, a brief moment in a corridor as she helped transport his medical records to the departure facility, her eyes meeting his with the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd chosen compassion over social acceptance, while he tried to convey through expression alone the depth of his gratitude for someone who had saved his life when no one else would have bothered. 2 years after his recovery, Samuel found himself staring at an invitation that was either the most prestigious honor of his career or the universe's most elaborate practical joke disguised as interspecies diplomacy. The ornate document, crafted from Zephyrian biocrystal that shifted through colors as he read, formally requested his presence at the ceremony of harmonious union, a cultural celebration where honored guests participated in traditional marriage selections as symbols of diplomatic cooperation. "Dr. Hayes," explained Ambassador Martinez during their briefing session, her expression carrying the kind of professional enthusiasm that suggested she was either genuinely excited about the cultural significance or had received very explicit instructions about maintaining positive attitudes toward alien wedding customs. "Your selection for this honor represents months of negotiation between human and Zephyrian diplomatic corps. This ceremony will be broadcast throughout the galaxy as a demonstration of interspecies cooperation and mutual respect." Samuel studied the ceremonial requirements with growing unease, noting that his role involved considerably more than academic observation of interesting cultural practices. "Ambassador, I'm reading this correctly that I'm expected to actually select a bride from among the presented candidates. This isn't just symbolic participation in traditional ceremonies. The Zephyrians take their cultural authenticity very seriously," she replied, consulting her own briefing materials with the careful attention of someone navigating politically sensitive territory. "Your choice will be interpreted as humanity's official endorsement of Zephyrian values and aesthetics, with implications for future trade agreements, scientific collaborations, and diplomatic relations throughout this sector. The weight of representing his entire species in matters of romance felt both absurd and terrifying, especially when Samuel realized that his personal preferences in life partners would be scrutinized as indicators of humanity's cultural values and commitment to interspecies cooperation. The ceremony's political implications transformed what should have been intimate personal decisions into diplomatic calculations, with ramifications extending far beyond individual happiness. His preparation for the ceremony involved intensive briefings on Zephyrian marriage customs, aesthetic preferences, and the cultural significance of various ritual elements that would be performed for the entertainment and edification of billions of galactic citizens. The selected candidates had been chosen to represent the pinnacle of Zephyrian achievement, scientists whose bioluminescent patterns could display mathematical equations, artists whose movements created invisible sculptures in the air, diplomats whose voices could make trade negotiations sound like music, and philosophers whose thoughts on interspecies ethics were genuinely profound. Each candidate has been briefed on human culture, explained cultural liaison Thomer during Samuel's final preparation session, her skin displaying patterns that indicated professional pride mixed with anticipation. They understand the significance of this ceremony for both our peoples, and are prepared to demonstrate their worthiness through displays of knowledge, talent, and the aesthetic qualities that have made Zephyrian beauty legendary throughout the galaxy. Samuel found himself overwhelmed by detailed profiles of 12 remarkable women, each more accomplished than the last, while trying to reconcile the diplomatic expectations with his own understanding of what made relationships meaningful. The candidates' achievements were genuinely impressive: groundbreaking research in quantum biology, artistic innovations that had influenced multiple civilizations, diplomatic successes that had prevented interplanetary conflicts, and philosophical works that were studied throughout academic institutions across dozens of worlds. The preliminary ceremonies introduced him to each candidate through carefully choreographed interactions designed to showcase their individual talents while allowing him to assess compatibility and mutual interest. Dr. Silvara demonstrated her research on cross-species genetic adaptation, her luminescent patterns shifting through complex diagrams, while she explained discoveries that could revolutionize medical treatment throughout the galaxy. Artist Kithelny performed movement sequences that created three-dimensional light sculptures, her graceful limbs painting invisible artwork that somehow became visible through the emotional resonance of her performance. The selection process allows for personal preference. Thomer assured him after his meetings with the first 6 candidates, though her skin patterns suggested she was monitoring his reactions for signs of appropriate diplomatic enthusiasm. However, the Zephyrian Council hopes that your choice will reflect appreciation for the qualities that our people value most highly: intellectual achievement, aesthetic harmony, and cultural sophistication. Each candidate was extraordinary in their own way, possessing combinations of beauty, intelligence, and accomplishment that would have made them celebrities on human worlds, while their genuine interest in building meaningful relationships across species barriers was both touching and politically convenient. Samuel struggled with the knowledge that his eventual choice would be interpreted through lenses of diplomacy rather than personal compatibility, while the candidates themselves navigated the challenge of being simultaneously authentic individuals and symbols of their civilization's worthiness. The approaching ceremony created a media sensation that extended far beyond diplomatic circles, with entertainment networks throughout the galaxy treating the event as a combination of cultural celebration, political theater, and romantic reality show that would determine not just individual happiness, but the future of human-Zephyrian relations. Samuel found himself the center of attention that felt simultaneously flattering and invasive, while the candidates graciously endured scrutiny that reduced their life stories to sound bites suitable for galactic broadcast consumption. As the final ceremony approached, Samuel carried the growing certainty that something essential in person or through galactic broadcast networks that would carry news of this moment to billions of viewers across dozens of star systems. The 12 selected brides arranged themselves in a perfect circle around him, each representing a different facet of Zephyrian excellence, carefully chosen to demonstrate their civilization's worthiness as diplomatic partners. Dr. Silvara's bioluminescent patterns currently displayed the molecular structure of compounds that could extend human lifespan by decades, while artist Kithelni's subtle movements created air currents that carried the scent of flowers from her homeworld's most sacred gardens. "Honored guest," intoned High Arbiter Thulvani, her voice carrying across the amphitheater with perfect acoustics that made every word seem personally addressed to each listener. "The ceremony of harmonious union invites you to choose from among our people's finest representatives, women whose achievements and beauty embody the values that unite our civilizations in friendship and mutual respect." Samuel began the ritual walk among the candidates, engaging in conversations designed to demonstrate their worthiness, while the assembly evaluated his responses, and the galactic audience witnessed humanity's first participation in Zephyrian marriage customs. Each interaction was both genuine personal connection and carefully orchestrated political theater, with every word and gesture scrutinized for diplomatic significance. Philosopher Kelthara discussed her theories on interspecies consciousness with genuine passion, her luminescent skin creating patterns that somehow made abstract concepts visible as flowing geometric forms. "The boundaries between minds become permeable when beings choose understanding over fear," she explained, her ideas genuinely intriguing despite the surreal context of their conversation. Diplomat Velsanya demonstrated her linguistic abilities by speaking in 17 different languages, each transition as smooth as music, while her expression conveyed the kind of intellectual curiosity that made cross-cultural communication an art form, rather than merely functional necessity. "Language shapes thought," she said, her words carrying undertones that made Samuel understand concepts his human brain had never been equipped to process. The ceremony proceeded with choreographed precision, each candidate presenting their unique qualifications, while Samuel maintained the kind of diplomatic composure that masked his growing discomfort with the entire proceeding. The political weight of his choice felt increasingly oppressive, as he realized that selecting any of these remarkable women would be interpreted as humanity's official endorsement of specific Zephyrian values and priorities. It was during his conversation with the seventh candidate, scientist Thulkira, whose research on quantum biology was genuinely revolutionary, that movement in the amphitheater's service areas caught his attention. Support staff moved through the shadows, ensuring that the ceremony proceeded smoothly, their presence carefully managed to remain invisible to the focused attention of assembled dignitaries and broadcast cameras. Among the service personnel, wearing simple robes that marked her as support staff rather than honored participant, was a figure whose scarred features and distinctive proportions were unmistakable despite the passage of 2 years, and her obvious attempts to blend into the background of a ceremony that celebrated everything she was not. Kira the Losa stood in the service corridor checking equipment, with the same quiet efficiency he remembered from those desperate nights, when she had saved his life through countless acts of compassion that no one else would ever witness or acknowledge. Her presence in the amphitheater transformed his understanding of the choice before him from diplomatic calculation to personal truth, while the carefully selected candidates continued their presentations with practiced grace. Their eyes met across the vast space with the shock of unexpected recognition, and Samuel felt his diplomatic composure crack like crystal under sudden temperature change. She looked away immediately, clearly hoping to avoid any disruption of proceedings that didn't include her among the worthy options, but her mere presence made him remember what genuine kindness looked like when stripped of political motivation and social expectation. The remaining candidates completed their presentations, while Samuel struggled to maintain focus on their impressive achievements and undeniable beauty. But his attention kept drifting to the figure in service robes who represented everything the ceremony was designed to overlook. Dr. Melthara's dissertation on interspecies medical cooperation was genuinely brilliant, while artist Valkyra's performance created light patterns that brought tears to observers' eyes. But Samuel found himself unable to concentrate on their obvious worthiness. The selection process honors both personal preference and cultural appreciation. High Arbiter Thulvani announced as the presentations concluded, her voice carrying across the amphitheater, while the crystal structure responded to collective anticipation, with harmonies that made the air itself seem to vibrate with expectation. Dr. Hayes, you have witnessed the finest representatives of our people's achievements. Which among them would you choose to honor with union? The moment of decision arrived with the weight of diplomatic consequence and personal truth, colliding in the most public forum imaginable. Samuel understood that his choice would be recorded in galactic history as either a triumph of interspecies cooperation or a catastrophic diplomatic failure, depending on whether he selected the candidate who best served political objectives or followed his conscience toward someone whose value couldn't be measured in conventional terms. The assembled thousands waited in perfect silence, while billions of beings throughout the galaxy prepared to witness either a celebration of diplomatic romance or the most unexpected decision in recent interspecies relations. Samuel took a breath that felt like it contained the atmosphere of entire worlds, knowing that his next words would redefine not just his own future, but the very concept of what qualities truly matter when choosing someone to share a life with across the vast distances between stars and the even greater distances between different ways of understanding what love means when it transcends species, expectation, and the comfortable assumptions that govern how civilizations decide who deserves to be chosen. Samuel stepped forward with the kind of calm determination that comes from finally understanding which choice matters most, his movement creating ripples of anticipation through the crystal amphitheater as the living choral responded to the emotional intensity of the moment. The 12 selected candidates maintained their graceful poses, while billions of beings throughout the galaxy waited to discover which accomplished beauty would become the symbol of human Zephyrian unity through diplomatic marriage. Instead of approaching any of the candidates who awaited his selection with practiced smiles and carefully rehearsed responses, Samuel walked deliberately toward the service areas, where Kira had tried to disappear into the background of support staff, who weren't supposed to be part of the ceremony's official narrative. His unexpected direction sent confused murmurs through the assembly, while cameras continued recording what would become either the most romantic or most diplomatically disastrous moment in recent galactic history. "I choose Kira the Losa," he announced, his voice carrying clearly through the amphitheater's perfect acoustics while she stood frozen with the expression of someone whose entire understanding of the universe was being rewritten in real time. Not because she meets anyone's standards of conventional beauty or diplomatic advantage, but because she possesses the rarest quality in the universe, the courage to show kindness to strangers when no one is watching, expecting nothing in return. The amphitheater fell silent with the kind of shocked disbelief that occurs when someone violates not just social expectations, but fundamental assumptions about how reality is supposed to function. High Arbiter Thulvani's luminescent patterns flickered through colors that probably indicated diplomatic crisis management protocols being activated at emergency levels, while the carefully selected candidates processed the fact that their prepared presentations had been rendered irrelevant by someone's decision to prioritize character over conventional qualifications. 2 years ago, Samuel continued, his words transforming personal memory into public testimony, while Kira remained motionless with tears creating new patterns on her scarred cheeks. I was dying in a Zephyrian medical facility, considered too unsightly in my illness to warrant proper attention from your regular medical staff. During the darkest hours when diplomatic protocols couldn't save my life, Kira defied social expectations to provide the care that kept me alive when everyone else had written me off as an acceptable loss. The revelation that their meeting hadn't been random, that his choice was based on knowledge rather than impulse, sent shockwaves through the assembly as delegates and observers began recalculating the political implications of a decision that seemed to have transcended mere diplomatic theater. Samuel's explanation transformed Kira from an embarrassing disruption of ceremonial expectations into someone whose actions had literally saved the life of humanity's honored representative. She asked for nothing, he said, stepping closer to Kira while the entire galaxy watched this unprecedented moment unfold, received no recognition for her compassion, and accepted transfer to a remote station rather than remain where her appearance might challenge anyone's comfort with established beauty standards. If those qualities don't represent the values that should unite our civilizations, then perhaps we've been celebrating the wrong things. Kira's voice was barely audible when she finally spoke, her words carrying the wonder of someone discovering that the universe contained far more justice than she'd ever dared to hope. Samuel, I never expected. I saved your life because it was right, not because I thought it would ever matter to anyone beyond that moment. But yes, I accept. The crystal amphitheater responded to emotions that transcended political calculation by producing harmonies that had never been heard before, its living structure singing with frequencies that somehow made everyone present understand that they were witnessing something profound rather than merely unusual. The assembled thousands began to applaud not because diplomatic protocol required it, but because they recognized genuine love when they saw it expressed through choices that prioritized character over convenience. High Arbiter Thulvani recovered her composure with the professional skill of someone trained to manage cultural crises, her luminescent patterns stabilizing into colors that indicated acceptance of unprecedented circumstances. The ceremony of harmonious union honors all forms of worthy choice, she announced, though her voice carried undertones that suggested she was improvising diplomatic language for situations not covered in traditional protocols. Dr. Hayes has demonstrated that human values include recognizing virtue regardless of conventional presentation. The 12 originally selected candidates handled their unexpected displacement with remarkable grace, several approaching to offer congratulations that seemed genuinely warm rather than diplomatically required. Dr. Salvara's luminescent patterns displayed what appeared to be complex equations for calculating the probability of love transcending social barriers, while artist Kithelny created light sculptures that seemed to celebrate the beauty of unexpected choices. Your decision honors our people in ways we had not anticipated, philosopher Kalthara told Samuel as the formal ceremony transitioned into celebration, her expression thoughtful as she considered the implications of choosing character over conventional qualifications. Perhaps true diplomatic unity comes not from selecting what appears most beautiful, but from recognizing what proves most valuable when tested by genuine need. As the ceremony concluded with crystal harmonies that would be remembered for generations, Samuel and Kira stood together at the center of a moment that had redefined not just their personal futures, but the very concept of diplomatic marriage as an expression of authentic, rather than calculated values. Their union would be studied in diplomatic academies as either an example of brilliant cultural sensitivity or catastrophic protocol violation, depending on whether future historians prioritized political convenience over genuine human connection. The Galactic broadcast that had been intended to showcase Zephyrian beauty and human appreciation instead became a testament to the power of recognizing worth where others had learned to overlook it, proving that sometimes the most important choices are the ones that challenge everyone's assumptions about what qualities truly matter when building bridges between different worlds and different ways of understanding what love looks like when it chooses courage over conformity. Years later, when Samuel and Kira's marriage had produced innovations in interspecies medicine that saved countless lives throughout the galaxy, diplomats would debate whether his choice had been brilliant strategy or fortunate accident. But for two people who had learned that the strongest bonds are forged through kindness offered without expectation of reward, the question was irrelevant. They had simply chosen each other, and that choice had made all the difference in ways that no ceremony could have predicted or contained.